Tonight, the Liberal Party chooses a new leader and the province's new premier.
A lot of households out there, a lot of families are still concerned about COVID, concerned about the economic crisis.
What we'll need to do is manage the resources we have a hell of a lot better.
Gone are the high oil prices and talk of balanced budgets, replaced with warnings about the fiscal, economic, and health crises now facing this province.
I've been treating sick patients my whole life. I see the province as a sick patient now.
Andrew Furey is a surgeon who's better known for his charitable work. This is his first time on a ballot, but his family has deep roots in the Liberal Party.
The status quo was never an option.
John Abbott has spent his career behind the scenes in government as the top health bureaucrat. He advised premiers for decades. Now he wants the top job himself. Good evening and welcome to a special edition of Here and Now, Picking a Premier. After months of campaigning, the provincial Liberals are set to elect a new party leader in just a few minutes from now. That leader will take over for Dwight, becoming the next Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador. I'm Carolyn Stokes, live from the Here and Now studio. We'd also like to welcome listeners joining us on CBC Radio.
I'm Peter Cowan, live at the St. John's Convention Centre, where we're just minutes away from finding out who that next premier is going to be. Is it going to be John Abbott or is it Andrew Furey? Well, the last premier is just wrapping up an address, and we're expecting the results to be here any minute. Carolyn?
Thanks so much, Peter. So let's meet the two candidates. John Abbott and Andrew Furey are both at the Convention Centre right now with their families awaiting tonight's results. Now, John Abbott was the first to declare his candidacy. He's head of the Newfoundland and Labrador branch of the Canadian Mental Health Association and has served 2 stints as Deputy Minister of Health under Premier Dwight and former Premier Danny Williams. Abbott has never run for public office before entering this race. Now on to Andrew Furey. He's an orthopedic surgeon and founder of the humanitarian group Team Broken Earth. He also co-founded the Dollar a Day Foundation. Furey comes from a family of politicians. His father, George Furey, is Speaker of the Senate. His uncle, Chuck Furey, is a former provincial cabinet minister. And like Abbott, this is his first time running for office. So let's check back in now with Peter Cowan, who's live at the Convention Centre for the results. So, Peter, first of all, what can you tell us about how this night will play out?
Well, after the current premier wraps up his speech, there's going to be a couple of introductions. We're going to hear from the Liberal Election Committee, which ran this race. Then they're going to hand it over to the Chief Returning Officer. And eventually, the result that we're all looking for is going to come from the outgoing president of the Liberal Party, John Allen. What they're going to announce is a total number of points that each candidate got. Every district has 1,000 points, and so depending on how many votes you got in each district, that's the number. So it's not an overall percentage. The magic number we're looking for is 20,001 points. That's what you're going to need to get in order to become the Liberal leader and the premier designate.
Okay, so Peter, it was a pretty rocky road for this Liberal leadership campaign with the pandemic and the postponement. How did we get to this place?
Yeah, this was all supposed to be wrapped up months ago, and then of course COVID happened and has changed pretty much everything in Newfoundland and Labrador, including this convention. Because, I mean, just have a look at the ballroom here. Normally this would be packed with hundreds of supporters. You'd have signs and balloons and cheering, and they can't have that. It had to be an event with fewer than 50 people, and most of the people in this room are actually the journalists and technicians and folks behind the scenes. The individual candidates could only bring 5 supporters with them today. And it's a sign of just how contentious this race has been that I just got a news release from John Abbott's campaign. Even before we had the results from tonight, he's already calling for an audit of the results, concerned about irregularities of people they called who insisted they never signed up for the race, other people who never received their pins, so were unable to vote. We do know around 21,000 of the 34,000 people who signed up were able to cast a ballot. Voting closed at noon today, so they've had a few hours to tabulate those results, and those are the results that we're expected to get in just a few minutes here.
Okay, so as you mentioned, it's definitely a different scene down there than what we've been used to seeing for conventions past. What has this done to the atmosphere down there? What's it like down there right now?
It's feeling very much like it's kind of a telecast that's happening here rather than an actual convention. You know, there's none of the usual joviality, the usual, people going around shaking hands, liberals coming together who may not have seen each other for a while. It really doesn't have that same sort of energy, and because the reality is there was no real way to do this. They could have just done this all virtually because, in fact, earlier this afternoon they held their regular AGM and they did it all over Zoom. But they wanted to create at least as much of an event as they could. This is the next premiere that they're announcing here, and wanted to try and create as much of an event as they could in order to announce who that person will be.
Okay, and another event happening today, saying goodbye to Premier Dwight on the West Coast. He's speaking right now, actually, and we're just going to dip in and hear what he has to say.
More. Well, then, you are a leader. I am thankful for our team of leaders. To my dedicated staff, some of you are here tonight. You have been through this journey with me. To the party volunteers and to all my colleagues, I say thank you. Together, we have positioned this province as a great place to live, to work, and to raise a family. But nothing is done alone. You can only achieve goals with a great team by your side. I also want to reach out to our public sector workers and thank you for providing services throughout Newfoundland and Labrador. And we have shown our respect for each other. We have shown our commitment to each other by negotiating labor agreements without any major disruption of service. And to my supporters, the residents of my district, and to all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, it has been my utmost privilege to serve you as Premier. You have always been and will continue to be my top political priority. Now, I have always understood that every MHA, every minister, and every Premier serves at your pleasure. I've always worked for your best interests. And thinking that we've come to this moment, I have to pause and reflect on friends and family who are no longer with us in person, but they are here in spirit. And lastly, my greatest support, my family. Now, words cannot describe my thanks for all of the supports over the years. There is no denying that this job can have an impact on your personal life, but we have done it together. So to my mother, my mentor, and to Sharon and to Jade, you have stood by my side every step of this political journey, and I say thank you. Now, I have missed a lot of special moments, but I am ready for the next chapter, whatever that may be. Now, last week, my decision was reinforced. When I was walking along with Antonia, she reached up to hold my hand. And once again, I knew that now is the right time. But no matter what I do, I will continue to be involved in our province. So to the next leader, this job deserves your all. There will always be more work to do. You are never finished with moving forward. Trust in yourself, trust in your team, trust in the residents of this great province. Now, I look forward to seeing what you bring to the position, and I look forward to working with you as I remain as the MHA till the next election. So thank you to Newfoundland and Labrador. Serving you as Premier has been an enormous privilege. As leader, now people often ask, they ask me about what it's like to be a Premier. I say, it isn't about an individual. It's about a number of individuals. It's about all our people. Now, over the years, many of you have reached out with words of encouragement, and you have thanked me for leading our province. But really, it's me who should be thanking you for this tremendous honor. Now, over the days and weeks ahead, I will see many of you. And by then, I will be a former Premier. but a present day cheerleader and a present day strong advocate for all things Newfoundland and Labrador. So thank you for allowing me to be your premier. I will be forever grateful, and congratulations to our next leader. Thank you, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Well, very emotional. Dwight Ball saying his goodbyes, thanking his supporters, saying that he's ready for the next chapter, but also saying he does plan to stay on until the next election as an MHA. So, Peter, before we hear from John Sams, the election co-chair, who's going to speak shortly, can you talk a bit about some of the challenges the next premier will face?
It's a monumental challenge. We're facing one of the largest deficits in this province's history. There is a health pandemic underway. A lot of people have asked me, why would either of these guys want it? When I was talking to them on Friday, both insisted they want it. They're up for the challenge. They're stepping up. They feel like the premier needs, or the province rather, needs their expertise now more than ever. So that's why they're here today, and we're just a minute or two away from finding out which one of them are going to take the job. So this is John Sams that you're listening to. He co-chaired the race and dealt with all the rules with the Liberal Party. Let's listen in to him introducing the results.
EIM, they had only 4,000 votes out of 11,000 people who registered. The support for the Liberal Party of Newfoundland and Labrador is strong, palpable, and resilient, as today we usher in a new era. So, I'm sure you're sick of hearing me talking. Let's get to it. As we move towards the results, I will now introduce our Chief Returning Officer, Louis Stoyles. Mr. Stoyles is a familiar face to the Liberal Party of Newfoundland and Labrador, a committed volunteer to our party, has indeed done thankless work as he worked through this leadership campaign. Thank you, Mr. Stoyles.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm speaking here today on behalf of myself as the Chief Returning Officer and Andrea White, our independent auditor for the 2020 Liberal leadership election. For the purposes of this leadership election, we used IntelliVote Systems, Inc., a Canadian-owned and operated company that is the recognized Canadian leader in the successful implementation of e-voting. I have the results in my hand, based on 21,182 votes, which I am providing to John Allen as President of the Liberal Party to announce the winner. The auditor and I are satisfied with the results as listed in this envelope.
Good evening. I now have the distinct honor of welcoming to the stage our party president, John Allen. I personally have worked with John for the past 3 years, and he's been our president for the past 6. And there's no doubt that he has given his time graciously and faithfully to our party, and for that, I want to thank him on behalf of the entire party. So without further ado, because he's the man with the vote, I'll pass it on to John, and he can make our big announcement. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Premier Ball, for your commitment to this province to make it a better place for all Newfoundland and Labradorians. Thank you, Louis Stoyles, our CRO, and Andrea White. I'm honored, as my last duty as President of the Liberal Party, to announce the next leader and 14th Premier for Newfoundland and Labrador. I will announce the runner-up first. With 13,557 points, in second place, John Abbott. The next leader of the Liberal Party and 14th Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, with 26,5 443 points, Dr. Andrew Furey.
Well, thank you, John. Certainly is odd to be looking out at an empty room, but such is life these days, I suppose. Thank you to the members and supporters of the Liberal Party of Newfoundland and Labrador who've entrusted me with this honor to be your leader. I'm truly, truly humbled. This was an unusual race given the pandemic, but I'm so grateful for friends, dedicated volunteers, supporters, and everyone who made a call or did a virtual door knock on my behalf. Thank you all so much for being there. Thank you to Premier Ball for your service and commitment to the party and to the people of our province. Thank you to the Executive Committee and the Organizing Committee of this AGM and for running this race in certainly what was a different time. My inspiration in taking on this momentous honor is the same as what gives me energy and support for what I do every single day. And that's my brilliant wife, Allison, and my beautiful children, Maggie, Rachel, and Mark. My mom and dad, my mother-in-law, and my entire family, you are my heart and the reason why I'm able to stand here today. Like any political race, the push and pull between candidates can often get heated. But to my opponent, John Abbott, thank you for running a strong campaign. And to anyone else who felt so passionate about our province that they had to speak out during this race, I know that together we can embrace a common goal of working towards a brighter future for Newfoundland and Labrador. And I want to work with each and every one of you. Equally, I am calling on the opposition parties and the independent MHAs to come together and to work together. Because future generations will judge us, not based on the size of the challenges that we currently face, but on how we responded. And we need to respond together. I'm calling on every Newfoundlander and Labradorian to come forward and stand together. Your passion and strength are needed now more than ever before in our history. And while I'm so excited to be standing here, my mind is racing about tomorrow, about the future. I'm ready to get going. Of course, we're still all concerned about COVID-19 and what the future may hold with it. But we've been informed, and we're better informed than we were 6 months ago. We've had time to adapt, to prepare, and to learn how to protect ourselves. We are challenged now to use that information to keep our healthcare, our economy, our education system, and our province moving forward while protecting our citizens. COVID-19 has also exacerbated an economic downturn in this province. We face a challenging economic time. The economy, managing our fiscal situation, and ensuring that we have jobs across our province is critical now. This is not a crisis we can overcome in a short term. There's no magic bullet. But it is one that we need to take action on immediately. So, let's begin. Let's get down to the tough decisions that need to be made. I tell you here today that I will always be completely frank and transparent with you as we move forward on this journey together. Yes, we as in all of us, across all party lines, across our beautiful province. We all have a role to play here. We all have a responsibility to the people and the place that we so dearly love. Together, we can dream of a brighter tomorrow. We can work together. We can grow together. And together we will emerge from this crisis a stronger, more caring, more compassionate, and a more diverse Newfoundland and Labrador. So yes, we all start tonight. Make no mistake, the path will not be easy, but I can say that things will be done differently. The status quo no longer works, and quite frankly, we can't afford it anymore. We must get away from that well-worn path of boom and bust and back again. We need sustainable, forward-thinking solutions. And as I've said many times during this campaign, I will call on the brightest minds in our province to take a seat at our table. Help us make the right decisions with the best evidence and make the absolute best choices to move our province forward. My friends, we need to redefine ourselves, our industries, from oil and gas to tourism to the fishery to aquaculture. We must constantly ask, what's next? To build on the enormous potential that we see in the tech sector, to embrace bold new technologies, to bolster our vibrant and celebrated nationally and internationally arts sector, to build a sustainable, fiscally responsible, and stable economy for the future of Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, there are things that we have to make right immediately, and as a father of three, I want to make sure that we have a solid back-to-school plan that keeps everyone's safety in mind. I've met so many seniors on the campaign trail. I've listened, I've heard, and I understand your concerns regarding healthcare. To all the Indigenous leaders, thank you for taking the time to speak with me. I know we've come a long way, but there is still much work to be done towards true reconciliation. And the pandemic has also amplified the growing problem around food security and the impact it has on the most vulnerable in our society. Right now in Newfoundland and Labrador, there are far too many people living at, below, or sadly far below the poverty line. So yes, there's a lot to feel anxious about, but I want to reassure you today that I'm 100% committed to being the change maker that this province needs right now. Now I know that there are skeptics out there, and all I ask is that you give me the opportunity to change your mind. Because right now we must look inside ourselves and reimagine a Newfoundland and Labrador that we want, not that the one that we have right now. Let's work towards it, because it's possible to achieve. To rebuild Newfoundland and Labrador, my friends, our work starts here, tonight. And to quote President John F. Kennedy, let us not fix the blame for the past. Let us accept our own responsibility for the future. The future. Together, my friends, it's our history to write. For the challenges we face together, and with an unending will to make a difference, I accept the leadership of the Liberal Party of Newfoundland and Labrador, and I'm humbled and honored to be the next Premier of our great province. Thank you very much.
And there you have it. Soon to be the 14th Premier of the province, Andrew Furey, saying he's ready to get to work, sending out a rallying cry for the opposition parties to come together to try to figure out some solutions to make things better in the province. He says we're going to start tonight, and saying that we need to redefine ourselves, the industries, the tourism industry, the fisheries, oil and gas. And also of note, he thanked John Abbott for running a strong campaign, saying that the push and pull of the leadership campaign can get heated, but saying that he ran a strong campaign, saying that his mind is racing about tomorrow and about the future. I can just imagine. There he is with his family, his wife, Dr. Allison Furey, and their 3 children. Peter Cowan is standing by live down at the convention center. We're going to hear from him in just a moment. But no doubt a very exciting day for Andrew Furey. Next steps, he'll have to be sworn in by the Lieutenant Governor. And then he's going to have to look at trying to secure a seat in the House of Assembly. All right, so we're going to bring in Peter Cowan now. So Peter, as I just mentioned, Andrew Furey not going to have a seat in the legislature. So when he's sworn in by the Lieutenant Governor, what does that mean, and what challenges does that present for him?
That, yeah, as you said, he's not going to have a seat. This is very unusual. Almost any other time that someone becomes premier, they already have a seat in the legislature. The last time someone came in and didn't have one was Brian Tobin, and at that time, one of the MHAs stepped aside in order to make sure that he had a spot and was able to then run in a by-election. So that'll be one of the questions. We're expecting him to come out in just a couple of minutes and start answering questions from the reporters as Premier designate. And so he is going to be able to, face all sorts of questions, from how does he deal with the financial problems this province is facing, how does he deal with the pandemic, as well as things like what does the cabinet look like under his own leadership. Lots of those things that he's going to have to start putting together for this evening. And, Carolyn, it is interesting to note that in that speech, there weren't a lot of specifics. This is one of the complaints that his opponent, John Abbott, had about his campaign, that there weren't a lot of individual things that he said tonight, that are going to be concrete things that we can say, yes, we were going to see him do this as soon as he takes over. It was a lot more sort of general comments about sort of the aspirations, the hopes, the dreams, but and when he comes out here, a few more pointed questions that we're likely going to have for him, Carolyn.
No doubt, Peter. And just how unusual is this situation to have a premier that has never faced a public election?
This is the first time that we are having a premier who has never had to run in a public election. Yes, he won through this Liberal Party process, but has never before had to actually, run for municipal council, school board, MHA, MP. So he is a newcomer to politics. That's true of John Abbott as well. Both of them, whoever won tonight, we were going to be dealing with someone who's going straight from private life right to the top political job in this province. It's going to be a learning curve, and we are expecting that it is going to take days, maybe even a week or two, for this sort of transition before he comes and officially takes over as premier. That's time that he needs to get up to speed on all the issues that are currently facing the government and the cabinet. He's also going to have to put in a team of his own staff in place. They're going to have to get up to speed. So any time that there is this transition, it's not instantaneous. He does not walk into the premier's chair tomorrow morning and take over. There is going to be a little bit of a transition period that we're going to go through as he essentially learns the ropes of what he needs to do and puts the team around him that's going to give him some of those expertise for some of the areas that he may be missing.
And, Andrew Furey has said that he doesn't plan to call a general election this year. He has a year to do so. So what's the situation going to be like for him in the legislature? Because he won't be able to answer questions. He can't introduce or speak to bills. And he'll get a pay cut.
Yeah, so let's go over some of those things. So yes, he will not have a seat in the legislature. That means he's going to be watching from the sidelines just like the rest of us. When we see question period, the questions the opposition has, they're going to have to be answered by cabinet ministers because the premier won't be able to answer them. And when you talked about that pay cut, well, because normally the premier's salary of around $160,000 is based on the fact they get an MHA salary and then they get a top-up as premier. He's not an MHA. He doesn't get that base salary. So that means he's going to go from billing about $700,000 a year as an orthopedic surgeon to about $70,000 a year is that pay that he's going to get as premier. So definitely a pay cut, although he knew this going in. This will not be a surprise. This is what he signed up for.
And you talked about the transition. How does the transition work? What will he have to do? What are his next steps?
Well, the next steps are going to be around putting together a team. He's coming in here right now, though, so I'm going to stand to the side because we're going to have a few questions for the Premier designate. So I'll just stand aside here and let Mr. Furey go up to the podium here and start taking questions from reporters here at the St. John's Convention Center.
Still set at Dwight ball height, I see.
move it down a little bit. I won't play with it too much.
So, Mr. Furey, what is going to be the first priority that you're going to have when you take over as Premier?
So the first priority, as I suggested during the campaign, is to get in and talk to the Department of Finance and understand exactly where we are. I mean, we were all privy to the economic update, but and the fiscal update that was provided by Minister Osborne, but I want to get in and have a healthy understanding, full knowledge of where we are and what can be done.
You don't have a seat in the legislature. How quickly are you going to fix that, and how are you going to do that?
Well, I mean, I was concentrated on the first election first, and now we'll put some thought to that. But as I said, throughout the campaign, I'll take the first seat available.
Mr. Furey, John Abbott has actually just put out a statement saying that he believes there needs to be an independent audit of these results because of problems that his campaign ran into with the voters list and with PIN numbers. What's your response to that?
And look, I have every faith in the process and the party's process. You know, I haven't read Mr. Abbott's statement, obviously, but we had great voter turnout. My understanding, it was close or bigger than the last leadership election. More people voted, and there was a higher percentage of turnout. So, you know, I have every faith in that the party did this process correctly. But of course, Mr. Abbott is entitled to his objections.
You had said you would run into some problems yourself with PIN numbers with your supporters. Do you believe they were enough to?
I mean, anytime you run a virtual campaign, it was the same as the last time. You know, there's problems with people getting pins and accessing email. It goes to your junk mail and those kind of things. And we experienced similar issues with that, but we worked through it as a team and we got the vote out.
How long do you expect the transition period to be before you're actually sworn in as Premier?
Well, geez, I just gave the acceptance speech, so it's going to take me some time to figure that out for sure. But look, I tell you this, I look forward to working with Premier Ball. We're good friends, as you know, and I look forward to making sure that this is as smooth and seamless as possible.
What are you looking at, though? Is this something that you're expecting to be later this week? Is this going to take you weeks in order to get up to speed, put your own staff in place?
I mean, you know, we haven't given too much thought to it, but you know, the average time I think would be, you know, within a few weeks.
And you mentioned in your speech there that you want to reach out to independents, to PCs, to NDPs. What sort of form is that going to take to actually try and collaborate in a minority situation where, you know, the Liberals they're going to need supporters in order to pass legislation, for example?
Absolutely. So I look forward to having input from other parties and from the independent MHAs and look forward to working with them. As you suggested, it's a minority government, but beyond that, I'm interested in hearing all ideas brought forward. The problems that we face right now are large. And if I'm not too concerned about what color the idea comes from. If it's a significant one and a real one, then we need to do whatever we need to do to advance it.
But what form does that take?
Well, I think we've seen an example of what form that's been in, Peter, just recently with respect to the All-Party Committee on the pandemic, and building around that framework towards future opportunities to collaborate is something that I look forward to discussing with the opposition.
Is there any concern with some 34,000 people registered to vote, only just over 21,000 actually did vote? Do you have any concerns there with that, some just over 10,000 people who didn't bother?
Well, no, not at all. I mean, that's still a high number of people that voted. I'd have to double check, but I think the absolute number is still pretty close to the last leadership convention. I mean, we are in the beautiful summer week, and the overall voter turnout, I think, was pretty good for a democratic process. You know, throughout North America.
Now that this race is over, do you foresee a role for John Abbott in your party or in the next election?
Absolutely. As I said many times throughout this campaign, I look forward to working with Mr. Abbott. I reached out to him earlier today and said, regardless of the outcome, I'd be looking forward to working with him in the upcoming months.
What is the first phone call that you will make when you walk out of this room?
My father.
What will you say?
I'm curious to know what he'll say to me, more importantly. But no, I mean, it's no secret. My dad is my mentor, and we're very close. We're very, obviously, I've said before that, you know, some fathers and sons share hockey stories and sports stories. But, you know, I grew up at my dad's knee in the political realm, and I look forward to continuing to have his advice and mentorship far into the future.
I couldn't help but note the the music that was playing with your acceptance there. The voice is Alan Doyle. Given you have a relationship with Mr. Doyle through Dollar a Day Foundation, is that song itself a conflict of interest?
No, in fact, we've got permission to use that song from Mr. Doyle, and him and I are very good friends outside of the relationship with the Dollar a Day, which happens to be a great foundation doing great work across the country.
You said one of the first things you need to do is sit down with finance department officials and get a handle on the situation. Yep. I think in an earlier interview you talked about how taxes might be high enough, so we have hard decisions, which means cuts. What happens when you have to start spending this political capital early to make hard and unpopular decisions? How do you handle that?
Well, I mean, right now we're headed into a budget cycle, and I would hope that most of the budget has been in place. I think it's be difficult to put a significant stamp on that budget at this particular moment in time. Officials and Minister Osborne have been working on this for quite some time. So I'd like to get in and see what's exactly in the budget, what the propositions are. But right now I don't think is a time for significant austerity. I mean, we look around the country, as I've said, this shouldn't come as a surprise. I've said throughout the campaign that countries, including our own, are borrowing billions and trillions of dollars to stimulate the economy. And I think we need to be cognizant of where we are on a global stage when developing this budget moving forward. I mean, we do have to look at the structural deficit that we're facing moving forward, but I don't see that as cuts. I see that there's hope and optimism there to grow revenues while balancing the budget on the other side.
Thanks. And on the deficit, I think everyone was pretty shocked by the numbers that we saw there. I mean, more than $2 billion. It's pretty alarming. And that's kind of your first big job as you get into office. So I'm just wondering kind of about your reaction to that and how you would let the province feel reassured that you're ready to deal with a job like that as a first-time office holder.
Absolutely. Well, you know, $2.1 billion is certainly an overwhelming number, but it's the second largest deficit in our province if we kind of look back. So, I mean, we've tackled it before, and I'm confident that we can tackle it again. Frankly, you know, in the back of napkin math, I thought it may have been a bit more, to be honest with you. So this is why you need to get in there and have a good handle on the numbers and get a good understanding of the assumptions and the modeling that was used to come up with that $2.1 billion. But everyone at home should be rest assured that this is a top priority for me.
And you mentioned at the top of your speech just kind of the atmosphere of the talking to an empty room and the convention.
You're so far away here,
too.
Yeah,
we're far away right now. If you could say a little more about kind of the creativity you saw in the campaign and kind of the unusualness of this event.
Yeah, I mean, it was some of it was alarming and some of it was invigorating, both at the same time. You know, doing Zoom calls, staring at a green dot for 8 hours at a time was not always fun, but it was fun to hear the people on the other side of that call and the hope and optimism, frankly, the suggestions that they brought. There's great ideas out there across our province that just need and they need an avenue to have their voice heard, and hopefully we can provide, I will provide that for them. You know, it was challenging though, I'm not gonna lie. You know, you drive 2,000 kilometers to meet with 6, 7 people. You couldn't have rallies, you know, you couldn't even meet people at a Tim Hortons coffee shop. But the people that I did meet around our great province were, I can tell you without a doubt that they were all aligned by the fact that they know that we have challenges that we're facing, but also that there's an optimistic future if we come through when we come through the other side.
There was another line in your acceptance speech just now, the second one, man. You talked about breaking the boom and bust cycle, essentially. The boom and bust here, we're an oil and gas province. You know, as you say, this is the second biggest deficit. You know, when the other one was when the ours fell out of oil. You know, back in 2015. Does that phrase signal a change in approach as to how you would deal with the oil and gas industry here in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Well, I think, you know, you've heard me talk about throughout the campaign that we are, you know, it's our core competency to rely on natural resources. But we've, you know, whether it's oil and gas or the fishery in the past, we've seen this boom and bust cycle. So we need to make sure that we move beyond natural resources towards a sustainable, diversified economy. And I'd be, you know, I've said many times throughout the campaign that I think our creativity as Newfoundlanders and Labradorians lends us to be very successful in the technology sector. And technology is independent of geography. It's a renewable resource. It touches all other sectors of the economy, mining, healthcare, arts and entertainment. An investment in technology is an investment in everything. And I think that that's a way that we can develop an ecosystem there to support the technology firms and create a pipeline to the future through our education systems, that we can actually grow and diversify our economy. And when people say that's not possible, we've already done it. We've done it with oil and gas. I mean, I was in high school when oil and gas was starting to develop, and people were going into an engineering school and just realizing the potential of oil and gas. So we can do it. It just needs a political will.
Can you talk a little bit about getting a bailout from the federal government in terms of some support from them? How high is that as priority for you and first steps?
Yeah, I mean, I've made no secret. My first priority is having a healthy collaborative relationship with Ottawa. I don't believe in the term bailout. We're part of this federation. Newfoundland and Labrador is a part of Canada. I believe in Canada. I believe in the concept of Canada. I believe in the concept of a federation and a strong federation. And we've contributed to Canada, fiscally and culturally. And now, in our tough time, Canada can help us. I think we're very lucky to be a part of it. And I think we're lucky to be able to leverage our relationships with Ottawa to make sure that we get a fair new deal for Newfoundland and Labrador.
Will you be asking a member of the Liberal caucus to step down so you can run in a by-election?
Michael, to my other point, and that was one of the first questions, I haven't given much thought to a by-election. I mean, I've said that I'll run in the first available seat, and that's what I'll do. All right? Thanks very much. Thanks for going easy on the first one.
Well, that's Andrew Furey speaking with reporters. Quite a range of topics were covered there. A few things of note. He talked about how, despite the times that we're in, he doesn't think it's time for significant austerity, giving us a sense of what may be to come in the budget. He says that he's going to take the first seat that becomes available, because that will be one of his challenges. He can call an election within the next year. So the latest time that an election could be called by is this time next year. But Peter Cowan is standing by right now. I believe John Abbott is going to be speaking soon. Peter?
Yes, John Abbott will be speaking, and it'll be really interesting to hear the message that he has because of how contentious this campaign was. John Abbott was definitely the scrappy candidate right from the beginning, wasn't afraid to run attack ads or take shots at Andrew Furey. So it's going to be really interesting to see the message that he has coming out of this. Is it going to be one of unity, of coming together, of supporting Andrew Furey? Or is it going to be one of questioning the result? We saw that news release come out just 15 minutes before the result saying we need to have an audit to look at the irregularities in this voting process. So Abbott is going to start speaking, and I'm sure that'll be one of the questions that reporters have for him right now.
Michael, we have known through the whole campaign period, there were issues that we've identified with the internal electoral process for the Liberal Party for their next leader. And as late as last night, I was on the phone talking to prospective voters, and we realized there's still a lot of issues. The personal or PIN numbers were not in their hands, those kinds of things. And we felt really now that the vote's in, we have a new leader, but let's look at the process so that for future elections we have a much more transparent and cleaner system.
So you're not actually contesting the results, you just want...
No.
The Liberal Party believes the problems were isolated and they were able to deal with them, so why do you believe they were more widespread?
Because they're by the hundreds, if not thousands, based on what we experienced. And I know Andrew Furey even mentioned himself, they were finding those issues. But to me, if there's 1, 10, or 1,000, let's just get the process cleaned up on a go-forward basis. That's all I'm asking.
Why send out that release just before the result? I'm just curious about the timing of that, if you don't want to contest the result.
The point really was, win, lose, or draw, I felt that this is something that needed to be done, and it became definitely quite evident over the past couple of days that there's some significant flaws with the process, with voter identification, with the fact that there were people who were, that I called, that the person was deceased. How that person's name got on a list, it's really as simple and as basic as that.
Again, I know you said you're not contesting the results of the election, but do you believe that these discrepancies are enough to overturn the result?
No.
Okay, so yeah.
No, I don't think, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't materially affect it as far as I know, based on what I've heard so far. I mean, we'll look at the numbers closely, obviously, over the next day or two, but I don't think so. It is just, again, we want to make sure, and certainly when you're electing the premier of the province, that you've got to have a process that is squeaky clean. And we need an audit, an independent audit to look at that, and I'll certainly be asking I'm asking the party to do that. And we should look at if there are other mechanisms of other jurisdictions to make sure we are doing this the right way going forward.
Do you believe you can work with Mr. Furey in the coming administration?
I don't know exactly what will transpire, and certainly I congratulate Andrew on his success. He worked hard at it, as I know he did. And I know we will be having further conversations, and we'll see what transpires.
Just a variation on that, specifically regarding the next general election, do you intend to run?
I intend to, as of right now, I certainly intend to run.
For the Liberals?
I would think that would be the preferred choice.
Mr. Abbott, 13,557 points for yourself today. Just your thoughts on those numbers.
Well, I was anticipating, based on everything that we were doing, that it was going to be close and that the gap would be much, much smaller than it was. Again, we'll look at those a bit closer. But again, not that it will make up the difference here by any stretch. But we know there were hundreds, if not thousands, of people who did not get their PIN numbers in time to vote. And that's true probably for both campaigns.
And do you have a message for the people who did vote for you today?
I want to certainly thank them for thinking about me and voting for me. And I believe the message that I had about the province before politics did resonate, both when I was out campaigning across the province and on the phone calls to prospective voters. That rang through loud and clear for me, and I was really heartened to know that that message was there. They realize, I think generally, and I think Andrew Furey referenced it in his comments, that people recognize that we have to change. We cannot continue to do business as usual, and that was a large part of my messaging.
Your own campaign had used robocalls, I believe, during the election. I mean, would that have caused any of the problems? Either sort of non-contact, push-button calls?
I don't think so, Michael. Again, it was very clear and clean kind of approach. I think when you look at it, there was, different. We collected our potential voters. The Furey campaign collected theirs. The party collected theirs. IntelliVote had then a master list. None of that lines up. So it's hard to really know exactly who was on first and who's on second when it came to potential voters. And so it's very basic things like that, from an information management point of view, need to be sorted out. And that can be done relatively quickly, I think.
So you say you're running in the next election for the Liberals. Would you be willing to serve in a Furey-led cabinet?
I can't comment on that, and I won't comment on that at this point. Okay, thanks folks very much. Thank you. Thanks for coming out. It's the hottest day of the year.
Yes, thank you.
Let's John Abbott, the runner-up in the Liberal leadership contest tonight. A lot of talk there about the voting process. He says that he saw significant flaws with the voting process, but despite that, he's not questioning the validity of this election, not planning to contest the result, but he does think that there is room to look at the process for the future to get that voting process cleaned up. So Peter Cowan will be speaking one-on-one with Andrew Furey in just a few moments, but let's just have a chat about this particular leadership convention compared to past leadership conventions, because they are very different. Andrew Furey said that this is definitely an odd one for him. The leadership convention is historic on a number of fronts. It's the first time the province will have a premier who has never been elected by the general public, and it's the first time we've seen a virtual leadership race. Now, normally the ballroom would be filled with supporters clapping, cheering, waving signs, handshakes, hugs. This is how leadership conventions, this is how it's looking here today. You can see very quiet. Even the chairs are physically distanced. A very different scene. Let's have a look at the leadership convention back in 2013 when Dwight Ball won the leadership. Yeah, you can see the difference there. This is more of what we're used to. Dwight Ball won the leadership after being interim leader for a year and a half. Paul Antle, actually, who has been supporting John Abbott through this campaign, was one of the contenders in that race, and Kathy Bennett was also a contender. So you can see quite a different atmosphere there compared to today. And this was the PC convention in 2014. A similar situation to this one where the new PC leader also became premier, and that was when Paul Davis won the leadership. Now, one big difference between that race and this one is that Davis was already an MHA and held several cabinet positions. But in this race, neither contender has ever held elected office. So yes, this convention looks very different. Saw some hugs between family members. And this one, I guess you could say it's subdued by comparison. There's a 50-person capacity limit for the ballroom at the convention center because of the pandemic restrictions. So no cheering, no crowds, only party officials, the candidates, immediate family members, and campaign organizers are there this evening. So Peter Cowan is also there, and he's going to join us now with a chat with Andrew Furey, the premier designate.
Mr. Furey, you're the first person to go into the Premier's office having never served in any sort of politics. This is the first election that you've ever won. What sort of challenges is that going to present to you? And I guess what are the opportunities coming at this with no experience?
So yeah, I think that, challenges are opportunities. I think bringing a fresh voice, a fresh view inside right now is important as we try to change the tack to stabilize Newfoundland and Labrador. There's no doubt that there are challenges with new jobs and new roles that you take on, and I expect that there will be some, but we've got a great team, and of course, Premier Ball is staying around, and he's a good friend, and he will help shepherd through this transition process.
You're going to have to put together a cabinet. Do you see Mr. Ball having a place in that cabinet?
I haven't. We just won. I haven't given any thought to cabinet, of course.
You talked about some of the issues, the financial challenges being some of the biggest ones. We've heard from some experts that essentially have said bankruptcy is the direction the province is heading. What do you think about that? Is that the direction we're going to have to take here?
Look, there's no question we're in a fiscally tough situation right now. I don't like using words insolvent or bankrupt because we're part of Canada, and we need to use that relationship to ensure that we're able to stabilize Newfoundland and Labrador fiscally, financially right now in the short term, so that we can develop medium and long-term strategies to help right the ship, so to speak. But, there's no question. We're in a fiscally tough spot right here, right now, to use former Premier Wells's term. There's no sense of sugarcoating that. Everyone needs to know that. Everyone needs to understand that. We all need to own that and work towards common solutions to fix it.
The last time there was a $2 billion deficit, it was a very similar situation. Dwight Ball was just taking office, finding out just how bad the situation was. He brought in one of the least popular budgets that we've seen in recent memory, lots of taxes and fee hikes. What have you learned from that budget and the way it was received, and how will that maybe affect the way you tackle a $2 billion deficit?
Yeah, well, I think we're, to be fair to Premier Ball and to be fair to the current situation, they're very different. We're in a global economic crisis right now where governments are borrowing, trillions in the US and billions in Canada, and billions through every province in the country to help stimulate and stabilize the economy. And so we can't lose sight of that. I don't think right now is the time for massive cuts or layoffs because, look around the world. Everyone is borrowing money, incredible amounts of money, to stabilize and stimulate the economy. So I don't think any economist would suggest right now is the time for that. The more important thing we need to look at is moving forward so that these deficits, this deficit in particular, doesn't become structural in nature, so that we don't inherit this moving forward. Like before COVID-19, we had about an $800 million fiscal gap, and that was projected to grow significantly given the demographic crisis as people leave the province and leave the labor force. We need to figure out how to fix that structurally, whether it's through immigration and changing our demographics, growing revenues, or reducing costs. But we're not going to get there in the short term unless we can stabilize the ship right now.
You talked about working with people. You look at Eddie Joyce, who used to sit in the Liberal caucus. Is there a world in which you can see him being welcomed back? Because, Mr. Joyce has been very clear that a lot of his beef was with the former Premier Dwight Ball. Now that he's out of the picture, are you going to want to work with him as a Liberal again?
Well, I'll work with him, but he's right now he's suing, of course, 3 members of the Liberal caucus, so that presents a significant barrier to any significant relationship moving forward.
During the campaign, you were criticized that you would be a part-time premier because you want to continue to have your medical license, and that's going to require a bit of work. Now that what's that going to look like? What are you going to have to do in order to maintain that license while still taking on all these challenges that we've been talking about?
Sure, yeah, it's fairly minimal, and we're working with the College of Surgeons and Physicians in Newfoundland and Labrador right now to see what that is. And there's an average over 3 years. It'd be very minimal. It's not going to distract from my number one job, which is being premier.
When you look at the fact that you're going from a very well-paying job as an orthopedic surgeon to as premier, until you have a seat, your salary is going to be, $70,000 a year or so. How do you just navigate that personally, taking such a big cut to take on such a big job?
I'm not going to stand here and discuss my personal financial situation. I mean, it's a big hit, there's no question, but I hope that, people see that sacrifice and it inspires others to make similar sacrifices, because right now we need people to step up and take leadership roles, and I hope that inspires others to do the same.
Well, thank you very much for speaking with me, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
And that is Andrew Furey, who is the Premier Designate for Newfoundland and Labrador. Carolyn.
So much, Peter. Yes, it'll be very interesting to watch the transition in the coming days. Andrew Furey still needs to be sworn in by the Lieutenant Governor before he becomes Premier. And as I mentioned earlier, about an hour ago, the Liberal Party paid tribute to outgoing Premier Dwight Ball today and shared sentiments and well wishes from his colleagues right across the country. Just take a look.
Hello everyone, bonjour à tous. Dwight, my friend, I wanted to take a minute to thank you for all the work you've done over the years as a Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador and leader of the Newfoundland and Labrador Liberal Party. You've been a great champion for your province and a great friend to our national Liberal movement and government. Together, we made important progress on the issues that matter most to Canadians, like healthcare, fighting climate change, and building an economy that works for everyone. And you've always been an advocate for your home province and Atlantic Canada. You've been instrumental in launching the Atlantic Growth Strategy and renewing the Atlantic Accord. I know I speak for many when I say we will miss your leadership and passion in public life. But I know that whatever you do next, you will continue to fight for and serve the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. Congratulations on a fantastic political career, and I hope you'll enjoy some more time with your granddaughter, Antonia, now. Encore une fois, félicitations, mon cher ami.
Dwight, boy, what can I say? We've been a part of Canada since 1949, and outside of the moratorium, I'm not sure there's been a harder 5 years to have been Premier of this province. Of the whole lot, I think you've probably done the most to earn that moose license for life that retired premiers get. At the very least, I suspect you'll get the most use from it. Working with you as our Premier during this time has been many things, but most importantly, it has been a great honor. Common courtesy, a keen ear, mutual respect. Together, those things allowed us to accomplish so much for Newfoundland and Labrador. The province and the federal government have been lucky to have such a steady and calm leader to deal with over these past 5 years. I think when many others would have given in to putting on a show and roaring and bawling, you remained steadfast and focused on getting the deal done. And that patience delivered historic funding for our province in infrastructure, in healthcare, in skills training. Look, there's been the odd heated moment, no doubt about it. But you always kept your eye on the end goal. What mattered to you was that we delivered for the people of this province. And in all honesty, it doesn't hurt that we enjoyed each other's company as much as we've come to. Our weekly phone calls, our frequent sit-downs. You made sure that I, and the other Newfoundland and Labrador MPs, that we had our fingers on the pulse of what our province needed from its federal government.
Well, tribute there from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, MP Seamus O'Regan. Peter, it's been quite the campaign over the past few months. This part may be over, but there's still so much more to come. What's going to be the next steps now?
Well, the next step is he needs to put together a team around him. So that's the staff that are going to be in the Premier's office. He needs to sit down with Dwight, figure out how long this transition is going to take. You know, it likely is sort of a week, maybe 2 weeks. A lot of this depends on sort of that negotiation, how quickly Dwight wants to get out the door and how long Andrew Furey thinks he needs in order to learn everything that he's got to in order to start making those decisions. So it's not an instantaneous thing. He is still the Premier designate. He's not the Premier yet until he's been sworn in. But he's going to have to start thinking about things like cabinet. Is he happy with the team that he has around them right now? Or is he going to want to start shaking things up? Because the clock is ticking. We're expecting an election sometime in the next year. He's got to make his mark. And the next big thing for him, Carolyn, it's going to be the budget. They've promised to deliver a budget by September. That isn't going to give him much time to start putting his mark about the things that he wants to change.
All right, Peter Cowan, thank you so much for your coverage down at the Convention Center tonight.
You're welcome, Carolyn.
Well, that wraps up this special edition of Here and Now, picking a Premier, and it has been done. The leadership race is over. Andrew Furey will be the 14th Premier of the province. Good night.
The following is